Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. We're going out of the matrix into prime reality. Thanks for joining us on X, Rumble, and YouTube. My wonderful wife, Christine, is in the live chat as inspired. And it's good to see you all as we talk about today the future of cities and freedom. And I mean, we've talked about this quite often, but so every so often I get this intense feeling in my heart that I need to talk about it some more and also explain the vision better. I think for what is coming in and what is already in cities, what's coming, and the future of freedom, sovereignty, and autonomy. I get a lot of backlash whenever we do this, and I understand it, but it's purely the backlash is purely emotional resistance, and I get that. We have heard over the last years a lot about smart cities, a lot about the UN Agenda 2030, a lot about the AI digital control system, all the visions from the UN, the WEF, and all the other organizations. This has been in the works for a long time. And so people have sort of focused on smart cities where they were declared. There's a lot of cities that openly declared we're going to become a 15-minute city, a smart city. And what these cities sort of are, how they work, what they all entail, was very well portrayed in a recent documentary called The Agenda, their vision, your future. And I wanted to play a little trailer for you so we can watch this together and then talk about it some more. So this is the trailer for this documentary.
Facial recognition will be
Excuse me, let's go back. Here we go.
facial recognition will be used to unlock your digital identity, which is going to be a tool of control for the agendas that are coming down the pipeline.
Elements of that control are already with us.
Alexa, good morning. Good morning.
You are never alone in your home, and this is why. All your devices at home and all smart appliances, they are all connected on a wireless network. Many of these devices will have cameras, many will have microphones, and so they are monitoring everything all the time. Your smart appliances are communicating with the smart meter and sending it real-time usage data. If there's a Ring camera also in your home, a mesh network is formed, and all your devices are being tracked within the home, its location, its usage, and all the data is going to Amazon servers. When you leave your home, all modern vehicles are connected to the internet, so your automobile is being tracked all the time. When you're going under a string of smart LED poles and smart LED lights on the highway and in the streets of your towns and cities, those form a wireless network and are tracking your vehicle. They are tracking all the devices on you, from smartphones to smartwatches when you're walking on the streets. So data is being collected 24/7 continuously on every human being whenever you are within these wireless networks. And it's obviously not good for health also because of all the electromagnetic radiation. In the long term, the plan is to pretty much lock up humanity in smart cities, which is kind of a superset of a 15-minute city. They've sold all the state and local governments and countries that smart cities are about sustainability and the good of the city. But in reality, the language from the UN and WEF and their white papers is all inverted. So, air monitoring is really about limiting mobility and no car ownership. Right? Surveillance, control via LED grid is why the smart lighting is there. Water management is about water rationing, noise pollution is about speed surveillance, traffic monitoring is about limiting mobility, and then, of course, energy conservation is all about rationing heat, electricity, and gasoline. Another concept one should be familiar with is called geofencing, and think of it as an invisible fence around you where you cannot go beyond a certain point, and that will be related to your face recognition, digital identity, and access control. Your smart contracts, SoftBrick can turn off your digital currency beyond a certain point from your house. Our world has been turned into a digital panopticon. That means you can be monitored, analyzed, managed, and monetized.
Again, this is from the recent documentary, The Agenda, Their Vision, Your Future. Cities are the predominant target of this development. Clearly, all technology connected to the internet and ultimately everything. However, cities are, they're in a bullseye. And in recent years, we have discussed this, and we have said, like many others have said, that for those who wish to live in a relative state of freedom, autonomy, and sovereignty, cities will not be suitable whatsoever. The question was whether all cities in all countries will become this way. And the short answer is yes. The more complicated answer is probably on different timelines. Any city of a significant size that is significant for its area, for its country, its region, will and actually is becoming a smart city, which means that you will only be able to really move about in that city, work, shop, live, travel within the city, within the zones of the city, I should say, with digital identity and constant tracking. Now, for most people that already live in cities, this is not going to be a problem. Most people are not going to be bothered by this because they don't question this, they don't care about this. Freedom doesn't really mean much to them. And this is where we get to the crux of it. Why this is possible is because if you look at the priorities, if you look at in recent decades, all the policies that have come out from governments and non-government organizations, international organizations, freedom isn't even part of the language. Freedom it's not a value that's represented in those plans. And it isn't a value that matters to a lot of people. Frank, that's true. It matters to a critical mass, but to the masses, it doesn't matter whatsoever. The masses are going to be perfectly fine just being within those restricted zones, because the convenience and comfort level within those zones, if they comply, and there's going to be parameters to comply with, is going to be quite wonderful for them. They're not going to have to think about a lot, and they're going to, cities are going to become more walkable. There's going to be less traffic. The traffic that's going to be there is going to be electric, and it's going to be very much limited to where and what people can move, but they're going to have what they need within their zones. And so this brings me to the good news. The good news is we have clarity on this now. I am saying that cities are fundamentally lost to freedom, sovereignty, and autonomy. And once we can sort of accept that, we can look into the alternatives, which is much more interesting, really, to me. So what do we actually need to preserve a level of autonomy? And this is not just over our physical decisions, but actually over our brain and our mind, which is going to be less and less autonomous within cities, because people are going to really more or less freely and voluntarily merge with technology. And this is probably the biggest surprise to most freedom-loving people, is that you're going to have not to have to force people. You're not going to have to force them to do it. They're going to do it. They're already doing it, and they'll be doing it even more. And they'll actually enjoy when the AI starts thinking for them openly, because for some, it's going to be the first time they'll ever experience thinking. So, but here's what we're going to, sorry, that's not the right one. Here we go. Here's what I believe that we're going to need, and we've talked about these things before, but this is clarity. What we're going to need to preserve autonomy. These are the essentials: owning and stewarding productive land. Okay, so and it's probably, to be honest, it's a non-negotiable. There's no way, if you don't have access to land, to have any kind of really, safeguarded freedom. And we're going to show some, models that allow people to do it in a more affordable way and in a community way. Thankfully, they're popping up all over the world, which is a really great thing. And these communities are going to have to maintain cash and barter networks. That's what really is going to make these communities so different and is making them already different, then the ability to produce food, energy, and essentials locally, right? So it's a complete 180 from what you've been taught all your life. It's a complete 180 from what the cities are about. It's decentralization. A community of maybe a few hundred people to a few thousand people is fully self-sustainable on essentials. They might trade with other communities for luxuries and comforts and whatnot, but when it comes to the essentials, they are fully self-sustainable. That's a must. And having a trust-based agreements, right, outside of the centralized system. So everywhere where two or more people live together, there has to be a set of commonly understood values. So these communities are going to have to come up, and to be sustainable long term, it's going to have to be based on common spiritual values. So these communities have to agree on a codex, if you will, and if it isn't rooted in certain spiritual truths, those communities don't last. So this is very important. And then, basically minimizing or eliminating any dependence on digital systems, using them only where necessary, only decentralized systems, meaning they're not depending on the outside system, and very little. So it's a completely different life. It's, for all intents and purposes, it's closer to the Amish life than it is to today's everyday regular life. But that, that's just to give you a visual. However, there's a fundamental message here. Life as we have known it, which basically was understood by most people to be what life is about, access to air travel and flying around the world and being in big cities and taking part in everyday society life, everything that has to offer, the concerts, the festivals, all the big stuff. That is not going to be accessible for the most part to people who do not enter the digital ID and the digital grid system. So it's in many ways, we're in the farewell phase. We're saying farewell. We're saying goodbye, so long, to this system. And this is, for some people, this is unacceptable. They don't want to live without those things. They think that's what life is, the amusement parks and a ton of restaurants and all of that. And I get that. I'm not judging you for it. I'm just saying, for those who want freedom, for those who want autonomy over their choices and sovereignty, those things will not exist in cities any longer. Not in the way that they have. And there's going to be limitations. We talked about this. There's going to be, carbon points. Basically, already now, your activities are being tracked, and you're being in the background. Most of you don't know this. You are assigned a carbon score depending on your shopping and travel habits, how much gas you consume, how much electricity you consume, what kind of food you buy. All of that, in the background, there's a carbon credit score that you're being assigned, and that's being tracked. Some of the banking apps are already showing people their carbon usage and carbon footprint according to their purchases. This is becoming standardized now. And like I said, it's not that this is going to try to stay away from smaller towns or smaller communities, but smaller communities in general will have more autonomy to decide whether they want this or not. A small town council can get together and say, we just don't want the smart grid, the smart surveillance system, and we're just going to not have it. And I think for the most part, they're going to be able to maintain that for quite some time and keep it that way if communities actually come together. And then what is so beautiful, and this is what we've been not only predicting but working on, is that because people see the writing on the wall and they can now see the evidence emerging in their cities and suburbs, and they see the system being built, they see more and more developments that are cashless. You go to any city now, or you go to a ski resort. For example, in North America, the biggest owner of ski resorts, Vail Resorts, is completely cashless on the mountain and in their hotels. So virtually the biggest ski resorts in America don't accept cash. This is already happening. Big developments within cities don't accept cash. You go to a shopping mall, restaurant, you can do anything, but you can't use cash. And this is now, we can now, I think, safely say that that ship has sailed. Friends that we have that work within city governments or that are closely associated, they've said we were asleep for too long at the wheel. People didn't care. And now that they've woken up, it's gone too far. So there's that ship, like I said, has sailed. But then there are these beautiful things that are coming up. For example, this year, I want to play this clip for you and then talk a little bit about it because I think it's a wonderful idea.
Families are about to start their own off-grid family compounds. You're going to want to do the same thing. They are leaving the cities behind to start their very own fully off-grid homesteads where they will grow their own food and finally be free. Right now, they're touring their brand new 5 to 10 acre parcels where they will each have their own multi-generational compounds and their very own micro farms. But here's the problem. They've never farmed before and they've never lived off-grid. So how could they possibly turn this into a fully operational and profitable homestead? Well, they bought an off-grid parcel of land with Axe. Axe helps families escape the system by getting them onto their very own off-grid parcels of land equipped with fully regenerative microfarms we call ranchizes. The ranchise is a 100% done-for-you microfarm that comes with everything families need to have food security and a profitable farm. Each ranchise is customizable to their family needs and includes cows, pigs, chickens, and sheep. With the ranchise, they also get a hand-selected team of ranch hands who are going to farm the land for them, handle and package all the food, and even take the surplus food to market. They'll be able to feed their family year-round and have a profitable microfarm without having to know anything about farming. So in as little as 1 year, these families are going from the busy city life to freedom on their off-grid family compound. When you want a house in the city, you go mainstream. But when you want multi-generational wealth and food security, you come to Axe. This is the future. This is Axe. Comment freedom to visit one of our properties and secure your family compound.
I think this is a brilliant idea. We were introduced to it a few months ago, and we've reached out to the founders, and we're going to have the couple that are the founders. We're going to have them on for an interview. I think as we speak, they're welcoming their 4th child. So it's maybe a few weeks till we get them on camera, but we're going to talk about it. And it's only one of many, many different ideas. But the ranchise system, as they call it, I think it's actually quite brilliant because it creates basically 50 or so families that all share in a ranch and in food production, meat production, not only for their own needs, but also to sell and create a sustainable business that I presume is mainly local. And so this is just one of these beautiful developments. There are also off-grid electricity, off-grid water, and so on. And other communities like that are popping up everywhere all over the world because people are seeing, they're just seeing what is happening. And I want to say one thing with sort of now a lot of clarity. These things that are happening in the smart cities and with the Internet of Everything and total connection, I sincerely hoped and at some point expected that a large section of the population was going to rise up against it because they don't want it. I simply underestimated the amount of NPCs that are around that simply don't give a shit, or maybe can't. Maybe that's the best way to say it. They can't. They don't care. It's okay for them because, the trade-off would be too big. Personal responsibility, self-reliance, all that. So they welcome this and they're okay with it. And so when I say cities are lost, it's not because the battle was lost. It's because there was no battle. There was no battle. It just swooped in and people are accepting it for the most part. There are notable small exceptions, small sections of the population who don't want it, but they're the vast minority, and that's why cities are moving forward with this. So this is why, and we've been saying this for years, this is not about preparing for something. This is not about getting ready for some sort of economic change or financial change. This is about changing your life and your lifestyle. This is about stepping out of what you were born into. It's not your fault, but you were born into a ready-made system that was always going to be this way. That's what it was always going to be. And now the question is, do you take the short-term pain of divorcing yourself from that and what you have known, the comforts of what you know, the devil you know, if you will, and move into a new way of living? And nothing happens overnight, nothing happens all at once. It's a step-by-step process. We have been doing our own step-by-step process for years, and every day, every month, every year, we gain more of that sovereignty, self-reliance, and freedom, to a relative degree. And people say, well, I can't do that anymore because I am already X number of years old. I say, well, you might believe that and you're free to believe that, but there's people who are doing it at even older ages, and they're making those changes. N- Maybe a big thing that I should say is, whenever we bring this subject up, people say, give me the solution. How can people on this or that kind of income do it, and what kind of solution is there for us? This is harsh, but why would somebody else have to have solutions for every individual situation? That's not how it works. We have to sort of, it's not anyone's job to figure out what the best solution for every single individual is. It's that particular individual's job to figure that out on their own. People are doing things, and they're educating things, and they're helping, but ultimately it's you have to really start relying on you, your creativity, your ability to research, your ability to come up with ideas, your own community that you build. It's really, and it's empowering to do that. This is really the beautiful thing. People always think of this as a burden. Oh, I have to start over. I've been sold this system and now I have to change No, you don't have to. Nobody's saying you have to. What we're saying is, if you value freedom over the comfort that you have, then that would be a requirement. Um, but the idea that life is more comfortable within this digital grid versus outside of it, I believe, is completely false. I believe it's a great misconception, misinformation, disinformation that was spread for a very long time. The happiest people that I have met in recent years are those who have simplified their lives, who have brought life back to the basics, who embrace community in simple ways, true friendships, who put their hands in the dirt or work with animals or raise livestock. Those are on average the happiest people, versus people that stay within the grid, stay within, the big systems. There's a lot of loss of joy that I can sense. So my verdict, my opinion, based on years and decades of research and observation, studying and reading, my verdict, my opinion is the cities are lost to the digital grid. Some go faster, some go slower, but they all go. And if you think about it, it's like saying, let's say it's 1890 or 1910, whatever, it's that period of time. It's like saying, oh, some cities won't get paved streets and some cities won't adopt cars. It's basically, if people think that there are cities who are going to stay outside of this digital AI control grid, it's like saying it's 1910 and some people won't have cars. Some towns won't have cars. It's that unrealistic, to be frank. And like I said, I don't presume that this is going to be a dystopian dark place necessarily. It's just going to be very tightly controlled. And most people are not even going to really feel the control because that's not what they pay attention to. They just wonder how they can get what they want faster and easier. That's it. And it's already that way in many ways. So I'm also not saying abandon everything and bring your problems to other places. This is an inside job. Once you have the clarity, the knowing, the realization, the healing, then you start looking at your future in a different way. And this is what we've been really noticing on a big scale within our community, the inspired community here. But even more so, we have this subscriber community on a platform called Locals, and the folks that have joined us there, we get to see more of their lives because they share in posts and videos and photos and comments. They share about their lives, and we get to see the incredible transformation that people are undergoing on a positive scale, and how they're making changes day by day, month by month, year by year, and how much happier they are. And it's a beautiful community that inspires each other, uplifts each other, shares with each other. And it's where folks, it's really become one of the beautiful hubs, in my opinion, of the internet, where it's about empowerment, where it's about what can we do, who can work together, what are we going to share, and people are building, people are envisioning, it's inspiring folks, and this is what we always wanted to build. Once we see things clearly, once the truth is obvious, the only question is, what are we going to do about it, right? And so I would encourage everyone who loves freedom, autonomy, and sovereignty to think about how they can sovereignize their lives. Think about the essentials. Start with the essentials. How can I become independent when it comes to my food and my water? Make sure I always have clean food, good food, nutritious food, clean water, without relying on the system. Supermarkets, big food distributions, the city water supply, and so forth. And then, then you move from there. You start from there, and you take one step at a time. And once again, when people say to me, Jean, this is also overwhelming, I don't know what to do, this is too much, I don't have the money, I don't have this, I always say, do what you can with what you have where you are. That's the excuse killer. There's always something you can do. Don't worry so much about what you cannot do, but focus on what you can do. And there's always something you can do. By doing what you can with what you have where you are, you will move forward one step at a time, one day at a time, to become the best possible version of yourself and to build the best possible life that you can. And people are proving this to us just beautifully when we see the posts over there at inspired.locals.com. If you want to join us, we get inspired. We read the posts, we watch the videos, and our hearts are full. And it's also where we share about our own homestead journey, our farm journey here on the Big Bear Farm, and what we do, and how we are learning, and the mistakes and the successes, the chickens, the eggs, the goats, the gardens. Every day is a new adventure. Every day is a project, and it's the happiest, most beautiful life. And it's so good to know that tomorrow morning, if the stores wouldn't open, we eat. I know the chickens that lay the eggs, and they know me. We talk to each other. We know our chickens. We love our chickens. We pet our chickens, and they lay the most wonderful eggs, and we enjoy them. It's as simple as that. And understanding that we have been hypnotized by promises of these revolutionizing or revolutionary technologies that are supposed to be so great, that are supposed to outperform nature, outperform creation. And it's all a scam. It's a lie. It's a lie. It's a good lie, but it's a lie. It's really sophisticated. So yeah, this is my verdict, my opinion, that cities are the sunset of civilizations. And I'm always harsh when I say this, but cities are where things, ideas go to die. Cities are where creation goes to die. Anything real, sooner or later, dies in the city.
Someone said something really beautiful.
Yeah.
Even if you never succeed, at least you tried.
Yeah. Somebody posted, Christine said, even if you never succeed, at least you tried. And I think we can even soften this by saying you succeed by taking one step. That's your first success, by taking one step. And if that's going to the farmer's market and making friends with a farmer, if that means you're asking your your neighbor who has a plot of land, whether they want to build a garden together, whatever that is, folks. Your future self is going to thank you. Your future, your children and grandchildren are going to thank you. And for those who want to be negative Nellies and always poo-poo on everything and always think that, that we're negative, we're fear-mongering, the facts speak for themselves, folks. This is what the people want. It's not, they don't have to be forced. They literally want it. There's nothing you can do about that. All right, friends. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here with us. And please hop over to inspired.locals.com. Join us there. Join the journey. We'd love to see you there. Have a wonderful rest of your days. Christine and I would love to invite you into something really special. We started a new show on Locals called Farm Tales, where we share the real stories from our homestead, the animals, the garden, the beauty, and even the funny mishaps along the way. Just like all of our work, it's about living consciously in harmony with nature and creating a life of true freedom. Please click the link down below and join us for Farm Tales on Locals. We would love to see you there.